They don't say it. They don't whisper it in passing or shout it in a moment of passion. There is no handwritten letter tucked under a pillow. No late night text confessing what's been buried deep inside. There are no grand romantic speeches. No vows made in candlelight. No tearful confessions under the stars. Because for them, words are dangerous. Words mean risk. Words mean exposure. And exposure is the very thing they've spent a lifetime learning to avoid. They feel more than they know how to handle. But they've been taught to contain it. To control it. To bury it. So when they love from a distance. Not because they want to be far. But because they're terrified of being too close. You keep waiting for them to say it. To express it. To make it obvious. You keep searching for validation in what you've always been taught love is supposed to look like. But love, for them, never looked like what the world told you it should. It doesn't come wrapped in words, it comes wrapped in silence. It shows up in the details, in the small things that go unnoticed by most, in the way they check in when you're quiet, in how they remember what you like, without ever asking, in how they anticipate what you need. Even when you don't say a word, they won't say, I miss you, but they'll make sure your car has gas. They won't ask, how are you feeling today? But they'll bring you coffee the way you like it. They won't say, you matter to me, but they'll stay up until you get home safe. Love doesn't exit their mouths. It exits their actions. It's not verbal. It's visceral. They don't tell you they care. They show you in ways that feel almost invisible unless you're really paying attention. And if you're not, if you're still looking for something loud, something obvious, something traditional, you'll miss it entirely. You'll think they don't love you. You'll think they're closed off. You'll believe they're emotionally unavailable. You'll label them as distant, uncaring, disconnected. But that's not the truth. The truth is they're protecting something, not hiding from you, but shielding something sacred within themselves. You see, for them, to love is to lose control. And losing control is a threat. Because somewhere along the way, life taught them a brutal lesson that opening up means getting hurt. That speaking the heart invites pain. That connection is dangerous. So they grew careful, cautious, guarded. They built walls not to shut people out, but to keep themselves from falling apart. And when someone like that loves you, they don't lean in with words. They lean in with restraint. They keep their distance, not because they feel less, but because they feel too much. So much it scares them. So much it consumes them. So much they would rather pull away than risk being swallowed whole. And here you are, standing at the edge, wondering if they feel anything at all. But it's not about the absence of love. It's about the fear of letting that love be seen. Their silence is not empty. It is full of meaning, full of tension, full of unspoken emotion trying to claw its way out. But they can't let it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And that's where the misunderstanding lies. You've been trained to equate love with expression, with saying it out loud, with showing it in ways that echo what you've read, what you've seen, what you've been told is real love. But here's the truth that breaks the mold. Not all love is poetic. Not all love is confident or consistent or clean. Some love is messy. Some love is scared. Some love is rooted in trauma and tangled up in survival. And sometimes love comes dressed as withdrawal, as silence, as space, as distance. Not because it isn't there, but because it doesn't know how to arrive. Avoidants don't use words. Because words feel too risky. They love with silence, with acts, with presence. They show love by staying close in the only way they know how, from behind emotional armor. And if you're not paying attention, if you're still waiting for something obvious, you'll miss the most powerful truth of all, that someone can love you with their entire heart and still not know how to say it. There's a language that exists beneath the surface, a way of loving that doesn't depend on words, doesn't rely on big gestures or loud affirmations. It's subtle, it's quiet, but it's real. It's the language of the avoidant. And if you don't understand it, you'll mistake it for the opposite of love. Avoidance love from the inside out, but the outside, it doesn't always reflect what's burning beneath the surface. It doesn't come with the warmth you're used to. There's no overflowing affection, no spontaneous declarations, no tearful eye contact that screams, I need you. They don't say it. They show it in ways that require a different kind of attention, because what they feel doesn't move through speech. It moves through behavior, through consistency, through control, through structure. It's not flashy. It's not poetic. It's not easy to recognize, especially when you've been taught that love is supposed to look a certain way. But their love isn't born from fairy tales. It's shaped by experience, by memories that cut deep, by betrayals, rejections, abandonments that came when they were too open, too vulnerable, too raw. So now they don't speak their love. They manage it. They protect it. They protect you from the intensity of it. They hold their emotions like fire in their hands, never letting it get too close to anything that might burn. And sometimes that includes you, because letting it spill over feels dangerous, out of control, too much. So they retreat, they regulate, they create space, not because they don't care, but because they care too much and don't trust themselves to survive what could happen if they truly let it in. Love for them is not a performance. It's not a scene to act out. It's a duty, a responsibility, a quiet vow made in the privacy of their own mind. They don't want to say, I love you 100 times. They want to make sure you got home safely. They want to remember that you like your toast slightly burnt and your tea barely sweet. They want to make sure the door is locked when you forget. that you don't leave without your charger, that the air conditioning is on before you walk in, that you're not cold, not tired, not overwhelmed. These are not coincidences, they're calculated acts of care. But if you're expecting passion in the form of poetry and affection in the form of constant reassurance, you'll miss what's really happening, because the avoidant speaks love in their own way. Not in the language of the heart, but in the language of logic, not in what's said, but in what's done. And there's a quiet brilliance to it. They are observant. They pay attention. They might not know how to open up, but they know you. They catalog your patterns, your quirks, your tells. They notice when your voice is just slightly off. They pick up on the shift in your tone, the way your shoulders drop, the way you breathe when you're upset. They won't always ask. They might not bring it up, but they see it. They feel it. They know. And when you need them most, they don't flood you with words. They offer presence. A grounding, quiet, stable presence that says you're not alone, even if they never actually say the words out loud. But make no mistake, just because their love doesn't follow the script doesn't mean it's absent. Just because they don't speak it doesn't mean it isn't there. It's there. It's just hidden. Controlled. Managed. Because that's the only way they know how to keep it from overwhelming them. And they are not withholding because they want to hurt you. They are not distant because they don't value you. They are afraid of being consumed, afraid of losing themselves, afraid of getting attached and being abandoned all over again. So they keep it tight. They keep it quiet. They love in the shadows. From behind a wall, one hand reaching out, the other holding the door open, just in case they need to run. And it's not wrong. It's not broken. It's simply different. To love an avoidant is to learn to see beyond the noise, to listen to what is not being said, to recognize the care behind the stillness, to feel the connection even when it isn't voiced. This is love unspoken, but no less real, no less intense, no less human. It just speaks in a different dialect, one that doesn't echo off walls, but rests quietly in the space between moments, waiting to be understood without ever needing to be said. Avoidance is not apathy. It is not indifference. It is not the absence of love. It is the presence of pain. Pain that runs deep, often deeper than words can reach. Pain that shaped their wiring before they ever had the language to describe what they were feeling. Before the silence, there was a storm. Before the detachment, there was desperation, a craving, a yearning. A wide-eyed, wide-open version of them that once believed in closeness, until closeness became a source of harm. This is the truth no one sees at first. Avoidant behavior isn't born from pride. It's born from a history of unmet needs. It's the scar tissue left behind after reaching out too many times and being met with coldness or chaos. It's the muscle memory of trusting only to be dropped. It's the echo of doors closing too early, too loudly, with no explanation. So now, they build their own doors, their own exits, their own internal shelters that no one else is allowed to enter, not because they want to be alone, but because being alone feels safer than being let down again. They learn to survive in silence, to regulate their own emotions because no one else ever did, to stop asking for more because more was never available. So instead, they taught themselves to need less, to be less, to shrink their expectations and bury their desires so far down that even they stop recognizing them. That's the wound. A wound that isn't always visible on the surface, but it bleeds underneath everything. It bleeds into relationships and into connection. Because even when someone gets close, especially when someone gets close, the wound begins to ache. The past begins to echo. And suddenly the present doesn't feel safe anymore. What feels like rejection to others is often just self-preservation. What looks like distance is really fear in disguise. A fear so raw, so foundational, that it overrides logic, connection, even desire. They don't want to push away. They want to hold on. But their body, their nervous system, their memory won't let them. Closeness activates old alarms. Intimacy sounds like danger. Because when they once opened up, they weren't met with warmth. They were met with confusion, with betrayal, with abandonment. So now they flinch from the very thing they long for. This is not about blame. This is about understanding. Because when the pattern is seen clearly, it stops being personal. It stops being about you and becomes what it really is, a reflex born of pain. They are not broken. They are wounded. And those wounds don't vanish just because love arrives. They spent years trying to outrun the ache, years convincing themselves they don't need what they need. So when someone finally offers safety, softness, presence, it doesn't always land. It feels foreign, unfamiliar, even threatening. Because healthy love to someone unaccustomed to it can feel uncomfortable. Too kind, too steady, too available. And that availability, it triggers all the places where love was once unreliable. So they test it, they retreat, they become quiet, withdrawn, analytical. Not to manipulate, not to punish, but to protect themselves from a fall they don't believe they'll survive. This is the inner war, wanting closeness yet fearing it, longing to connect yet pulling away when it finally starts to happen. It's not a lack of desire. It's a lack of trust, not in you but in themselves, to handle the vulnerability that connection demands. And yet, beneath the silence, beneath the stillness, is a child who once cried out and no one came, a teenager who trusted and was betrayed, a soul who gave love and was punished for it. That's the pattern. That's the pain repeating itself, disguised as detachment. And until that pain is faced, until those early stories are rewritten, until safety becomes familiar instead of foreign, They will keep pushing love away with one hand while silently hoping it doesn't let go with the other. But let it be clear, this pattern is not a choice. It is a response. A protective, deeply ingrained response to the body's oldest memories of loss, of fear, of abandonment. Understanding this doesn't mean accepting emotional starvation, but it does mean recognizing the truth. What looks like avoidance is often just a heart that was never allowed to feel safe being open. And the first step to breaking that pattern is seeing it. It's easy to take it personally, to sit in silence wondering what you did wrong, to convince yourself that if you had said something different, been easier to love, more patient, more understanding, maybe they would have stayed, maybe they would have opened up, maybe they would have chosen you fully. But that thinking, that spiral is a trap, because this was never about your worth. This was never about your value. This was about their story, not yours. And unless you shift the lens, you will stay trapped in a role that was never meant for you, the role of the one trying to earn what should have been freely given. You are not a victim of their silence. You are not powerless in the face of their patterns. You are not here to fix what someone else refuses to face. You are here to see clearly, and clarity is the beginning of power. You've been waiting for them to change, waiting for them to speak, waiting for them to show up differently, not just for you, but for themselves. But waiting is its own form of bondage. Waiting keeps you stuck in a story where your needs are always on hold, where your truth is always silenced to keep the peace, where your love is always a negotiation. But love should never require you to abandon yourself. They are doing what they've always done. Surviving. They've built a system that keeps them safe, emotionally contained, protected. And maybe you've spent months, even years, hoping that one day they'll realize it. That one day they'll wake up and finally give you what you've been waiting for. But here's the brutal truth. They may not because they don't care, not because they don't feel something for you, but because their survival still feels more important than your connection. Because self-protection is still louder than self-awareness. And that's where the shift has to happen, not in them, in you. Because power isn't found in getting someone else to love you right. Power is found in realizing you don't have to chase that love anymore. You get to choose. You get to decide that being loved quietly, inconsistently, or conditionally is no longer enough. You get to step out of the cycle where you're always reaching, always deciphering, always carrying the emotional weight of two people. There's a difference between understanding someone's wounds and taking responsibility for them. There's a line between compassion and self-abandonment. And too often, that line gets blurred in the name of love. But love that costs you your voice is not love. It's sacrifice. And you were not born to be a martyr to someone else's emotional survival. You were born to stand tall in your truth. To know your needs are not too much. To know that asking for connection, presence, words, intimacy does not make you needy. It makes you human. So you stop explaining yourself. You stop overanalyzing every silence. You stop assigning meaning to their withdrawal and making it a reflection of your worth. Because you are not someone's second chance at healing. You are not the cure for their fears. You are not the one who has to break your own heart to prove that theirs is still beating. You are the one who decides what story you want to live in. The one who chooses whether you stay in patterns that keep you small or break them wide open. But that is the moment of power. When you start asking, why won't they love me better? You start asking, why am I still accepting less? When you stop begging for closeness from someone who fears it and start walking toward the life, the love, the wholeness you deserve. Even if it means walking alone for a while. This is not about bitterness. It's about boundaries. It's about no longer living at the mercy of someone else's emotional capacity. It's about honoring yourself enough to say, I see your wounds, but I will not bleed for them anymore. You are not here to translate unspoken love. You are not here to shrink so they can feel safe. You are here to expand, to claim the fullness of who you are, to stop waiting for someone to become ready, and to become ready yourself, ready to live, ready to speak, ready to walk into relationships that meet you where you are, not where you're willing to lower yourself to be accepted. The story changes the moment you realize this. You never needed to be chosen by someone else. You only needed to choose yourself. It's possible to understand someone's pain without becoming a container for it. Possible to see their fear, their fragility, their trauma, and still remember that you exist too. Because love is not meant to erase you. It's not meant to silence your needs. It's not meant to turn you into a shape shifter. Bending, adapting, shrinking, just to stay close to someone who keeps pulling away. There's a line you must draw, a sacred line. The line between loving them and losing yourself. You can hold space for someone's wounds, but you are not obligated to be their healer. You can empathize with their silence, but you do not have to live in emotional starvation just to stay connected. Because when love becomes a place where your voice goes unheard, it stops being love. It becomes survival, a transaction of emotional endurance, where one person gets to stay closed and the other is left open, vulnerable, and waiting. And waiting for too long becomes a wound in itself. Waiting turns love into hope, and hope into a slow, quiet self-abandonment. You start calling the bare minimum enough. You start labeling distance as independence. You start pretending that their silence is just a different kind of affection. But deep down, your nervous system knows. It knows when it's being neglected. It knows when your needs are being buried under the illusion of strength. It knows when connection is one-sided, when your heart is doing all the reaching. There's nothing noble about staying in a dynamic where you have to teach someone how to love you while constantly silencing your own needs just to keep them comfortable. That is not love. That is a performance, a slow erosion of your spirit disguised as patience. And yes, they might love you in their own way, in the quiet, hidden, fearful way they've always known. But if their love only thrives in conditions where yours is constantly on hold, then what you have isn't a relationship. It's a rescue mission. You were not created to be someone's emotional safe house, where they can come and go as they please, where they can feel close enough without ever really opening the door. You were created to be seen, to be met, to be chosen, not out of fear, but with intention. And here's what so many forget. It is not cruel to need more. It is not selfish to ask for presence. It is not wrong to crave clarity, depth, expression, reciprocity. These are not unreasonable demands. They are the basic language of intimacy. You don't need to apologize for wanting someone who shows up fully. You don't need to explain why silence doesn't feel like safety to you. You don't need to justify why you want your love to be spoken, felt, heard, witnessed, not buried in distance and hidden behind logic. You can love them and still walk away. You can hold compassion and still choose yourself. You can say, I see your pain, I honor it, and still say, but I won't sacrifice myself to carry it anymore. Because love without mutual presence is a slow starvation, and you deserve to be fed. You deserve a love that doesn't ask you to guess, a love that doesn't punish your sensitivity, a love that doesn't make you feel guilty for needing connection, reassurance, consistency. You deserve someone who doesn't just love you in theory, but in practice. Not someone who says, this is who I am, take it or leave it, but someone who says, this is who I've been, and I want to grow with you. And if they can't say that, if they can't meet you, move toward you, speak to you, then it's okay to let go. Not because they're bad, not because they didn't feel anything, but because they weren't ready. And you are ready for a love that doesn't require your silence to survive, ready for a connection that feeds you both, ready for something that doesn't feel like a test. This is not about becoming hardened. This is not about building walls. It's about building standards, boundaries that say, I can love you and still leave. I can care deeply and still protect myself. I can see your wounds and still walk away if you won't heal them. Love without self-respect is surrender. And surrender in the wrong hands turns into slow disappearance. So stop disappearing, stop negotiating with someone's emotional limitations. Stop dimming your light so they can avoid the glare of their own discomfort. You're allowed to want more. You're allowed to walk away when less becomes the norm. You're allowed to choose yourself, not as an act of revenge, but as an act of resurrection. Because loving someone should never mean forgetting how to love yourself. This is the turning point, the place where the pattern ends or continues. Because what happens next is not about them. It's about you. You've spent enough time hoping they'll change, hoping they'll say the words, hoping the silence will finally give way to clarity, hoping love will feel like something other than a guessing game. But hope without movement is just a cage. And you weren't born to wait behind invisible walls, decoding someone else's fear while your soul starves for connection. You were born to live fully, to feel deeply, to love out loud, not to settle for fragments of affection disguised as mystery, not to shrink yourself in the name of patience, not to abandon your truth in the name of understanding. Because understanding someone's pain does not require you to carry it. And compassion does not mean self-erasure. So this is the moment you decide no more waiting, no more half-love, no more emotional breadcrumbs wrapped in silence and called care. No more contorting your heart just to make someone else feel safe while you sit in the dark, wondering if you'll ever be enough to unlock the version of them that actually shows up. You are not here to be chosen last. You are not here to beg for closeness. You are not here to prove your worth to someone whose fear of love is louder than their ability to give it. You are here to rise from the ruins of almost love, to rise from the emotional silence that has kept you small, to rise from the role you never agreed to play, the one where you do all the feeling, all the reaching, all the breaking. There is power in walking away from anything that costs you your wholeness. There is power in saying, this is not enough. There is power in no longer confusing mystery for depth or distance for strength. Let the truth settle deep into your bones. You are not too much. You are not too needy. You are not asking for anything outrageous by wanting to feel seen. You are simply done asking for it from people who don't have the courage to meet you there. The love you deserve will not confuse you. It will not disappear when things get close. It will not punish you for feeling. It will not come wrapped in silence, withdrawal, or unspoken rules you were never told you had to follow. The love you deserve will arrive without you having to beg for it. It will stand beside you, not above you. It will speak, not just act. It will hold you, not just study you from a distance. But before that love can find you, you must become the version of yourself who is no longer clinging to the one that couldn't. You must release the grip on what never fully held you. You must mourn the connection that could have been and own the truth that it never was. You must walk forward even when your heart trembles, because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is leave the space where your soul keeps getting smaller. This is the fire. This is the moment where you stop surviving and start commanding, where you stop trying to be the one who makes it work and start becoming the one who walks in truth, even if that truth costs you the illusion of connection. No more diluted love. No more decoding silence. No more reaching across a distance someone refuses to close. You are done shrinking, done settling, done holding space for someone who won't even meet you halfway. This is your life, your heart, your future. And the next chapter begins the moment you decide to close the old one. Not with anger, but with clarity. You are not cold for walking away. You are not cruel for choosing peace. You are not selfish for needing more. You are ready to rise, ready to reclaim your voice, ready to stop trying to fix, chase, or interpret love that can't even name itself. Let them keep their silence. Let them hold their walls. Let them stay in the familiar arms of avoidance if that's what they choose. But you choose differently. You choose forward. You choose freedom. You choose the version of love that doesn't require you to disappear to feel it. You choose the version of yourself that no longer waits to be seen because she finally sees herself. The transformation doesn't happen when they change. The transformation happens now. When you stop asking, will they love me the way I need? And start saying, I will never again love someone more than I love myself. Stand up, walk on, let go, and become. The story changes now because you do.